Alright, welcome to another cube draft. Alright, so I've got some interesting choices here. I could take Charcoal Diamond, that's like a really safe pick. That can lead me to Control. I could take Swiss Spear or Machete. If I take Machete, I can wheel whichever aggro card comes back. If an aggro card comes back, I'm just going to go with Charcoal Diamond here. Sphinx of the Lost Truths is pretty good. I also like Muldrifter. I like Sphinx of Lost Truths better though. It's just like, it's a bigger body. It actually means something on the board. Better late game threat. It seems worse on paper than Muldrifter, but I think it's slightly better. Just slightly. Yeah, Henny's expertise. Alright. Yeah, we can move into blue-black. Take... Sleight of Hand versus Brainstorm is kind of tricky, but I'll take the Brainstorm. Sleight of Hand's also kind of more likely to wheel. I think people see Brainstorm and they say, ooh, iconic card. And they don't see Sleight of Hand in quite the same way. One thing that's hard about blue-black control in Cube is that there just aren't enough good black wraths, so you often get stuck in this place of like needing more damnation effects and not having them for no reason really. I mean, that's strange. I'll take the Pyroclasm. I mean, Council's Judgment is really good though too. If I take the Pyroclasm, I'm really hedging my bets against aggro. Trying to beat that matchup. And if I take the Council's Judgment, I'm hedging against mid-range. This is much easier to splash. We don't really know what colors we are though, and I think blue-white is probably a more successful... well... I mean, you know, what are you gonna do? Arc Lightning's fairly good. I'll take the Arc Lightning. Are we like supposed to be tempo here? I mean, yeah, we can play tempo. Let's do that. It's not where I was expecting to go with this, but sure. I like Imprison the Moon. I also like Karn. But I think Imprison the Moon is kind of the effect that we're going to want in our blue-red deck. We didn't get the Cascade Bluffs. We took Arc Lightning over that, so we're on the lookout for lands as well here. We need a Rabble Master pretty badly. That's kind of the thing that Tempo's pretty much predicated on, I think, in my cube, is like having pivotal 3-drops and letting those 3-drops just do the things that they do best. Kind of just want to have some fixing. I think one of those will wheel, so it's a decent 3-drop, but not amazing. Could we just be mono red? We could be. I mean, looks like we're getting the stuff for it. Alright. Generally don't start mono red in the middle of pack 2, but I think it's possible to make this work. We didn't have that much in blue to start with. We're going to play Cranko here. Yeah, we could have taken the Swiss Spear. We probably should have read that as a sign that mono red was open. Could have moved in sooner. We could have probably a better deck than what we've got right now. Like we would have had another Incinerate over Mana Confluence. Yeah, there are some things that could have gone better with this. Phyrexian Revoker versus Spine Thopter. I actually kind of want the Thopter to some degree, but I think it'll wheel, so I'm going to take this instead. We've got a lot of 2-drops. I'm okay with having like a 2-drop centric curve for my aggro deck that I started in the middle of pack 2. But, you know, it'd be better if we didn't have to do that. I'll take the negate, I think, in the off chance that I want to be like red with slight blue splash, which like isn't unreasonable. And we've got some fixing to support that idea, so I'm not writing it off. Maybe we get like a Snapcaster or something in the next pack, and we're just like, yeah, we should probably be in that. I'll take Ruin Raider. It's a fine card if we move into red-black. I doubt that's going to happen in the middle of this pack, but it could, I suppose. Slagstorm is fine. This isn't the worst tempo deck I've ever seen in my life. It's not great, but it's fine. Oh, Spine Thopper didn't come back, did it? That's weird. That's really weird. Well, we've got another Rabble Master with Mavrin if we wanted to play it. Take the Volcanic Hammer here. Char, sure. This is pack 5, so maybe we can get there on this mono red thing, but probably not. We're probably going to end up being red-blue. Sorry if I'm scrolling a little bit too much / too fast. I'm just trying to give myself an idea of what's going on in my deck. I didn't get a Steam Lens, right? No. We could take Mom, but we don't really have a way of making that work. We could take Jace. That's fine. It's a pretty reactive card, so it's like not a card I'm super excited to play in my blue-red tempo deck, but it's fine. I almost got really excited for the Cloud Conspirator, but then I saw the Rabble Master, and I said, oh, well, I have to take the Rabble Master. Alright, we've got an in for red-black if we want to play that instead. Now, or some combination of, like, Grixis. Take Sarkhan as, like, top end. Flames with the Firebrand, though, is just a pretty decent card. How many creatures do we have? 11. That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, I'll take Flames with the Firebrand here. Ooh, 1-drop. Looks like we have actually a pretty solid mono red deck that's coming together in the last pack, maybe. Cross my fingers. Oof, that's a big hit. I guess we'll take this since we've kind of got fixing to support black. I actually do like our black cards more than our blue cards, because most of them are single pip. I mean, some of our blue cards are as well, right? Like these guys, if we don't include Sphinx of the Lost Truths. But I think if we go blue, we're going to want to be that way. Whereas if we go red, we could play like dots, or red-black, we could play like this. And then we just need like maybe Bleeding Edge we could play. Bomac Courier. Nice. But for now, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to play Sarkhan instead of the harder to splash card. Or Sugar Kenra versus Shock. I think I just want the Shock here. Alright, well we did end up with some reasonably splashable cards. Like that. This is fine. Relatively low on our black impact on the deck. And I don't want to be on 17 lands here, so I think I'm just going to go Bloodstained Mire, Blood Crypt, Mana Confluence, and then maybe Fiery Islet as like a draw land. 1, 2, 3. So I think we only need 5 black sources for this deck. I think that's better than the blue version. The blue version lends itself to some consistency, but I would need to go deeper into blue, which I'm like not super amped about. So I'm just gonna try this. Alright. See you in the games. Alright. Here we are ready for round 1. We won the die roll. And we can keep this, so I'll go ahead and play a tapped land and pass. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we don't have a ton of 1-drops in this list, which is going to be to our disadvantage. Uh-oh. Please don't bolt my guy. No. Okay.
Okay, so here we get to play a threat, and Thoughtseize our opponent.
I'll take the Fire Diamond. It prevents my opponent from doing anything like proactive here, which is going to help me increase the amount of tempo I'm gaining by playing the aggressive deck. Okay. They just play it again. Get it for 2. Alright, you did it.
Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. Just play out the Ruin Raider so we can start drawing cards. And Flames of the Firebrand. Excellent. So now we got 2 bolts.
Control magic would be kind of unfortunate, but I mean, I just get to Flames the Firebrand it, so it's not that bad, it's just a little bit annoying. I think control magic is the play for my opponent. Sower of Temptation is not good here. And holding up Counterspell is eh, because I just get to get in for 5, so, and I don't, like, I'll play something into the Counterspell pretty willingly. Yep. That's wrong.
Alright, so we draw a Shock. I think we just attack. And I'm thinking that we probably just Flames the Firebrand the 2-1 and then get 2 more damage in. This means that I don't quite have lethal with the burn that I have in hand. So maybe that's wrong, but my opponent's hand does have a counterspell on it, so they can counter the lethal burn. And this kind of allows me to force my opponent's hand to try to Sower of Temptation my Orc, which I can then shock and get it back and continue applying pressure.
Okay. You can't possibly think that sowering, that's the answer, right? Okay. Okay, so out of our sideboard, I like our main deck in this matchup. It's pretty well equipped. I could see like Flame Tongue Kavu not being excellent, but it's fine. It's gonna be good most of the time. There's a decent portion where my opponent will have a creature, I would imagine. This is like blue-red control, and I don't think blue-red control is all that great, so but that's okay. I'm gonna lead off with the Bomac Courier. What is your deck? That's just not a good inclusion. Sure. Okay, so my opponent is Tempo. It's like Tempo with not nearly enough lands or cantrips. Okay.
Alright, so we drew Thoughtseize. We're going to make the same play as before, where we play Firebrand Archer. Thoughtseize our opponent. Hopefully we can take something pretty reasonable away.
Counter spell, I guess. Okay. Yep.
Yep, so we're going to take 3 here. Getting pretty low on life, but I think we'll, if we draw like some form of removal, we're in a good spot. Alright, so the plan here is to attack, sweep the board with Slagstorm, which is like, not great. But we can play Goblin Banneret after that as a follow-up, and then then we can play the Kitesail Freebooter, which is nice.
I'm gonna lose like Guardian Idol activations. Oof. This is gonna be like Inferno Titan or something because people don't know how to build curves. Okay.
You did it. You stole my Banneret. Congrats. Alright, let's sack this Islet, draw a card. Incinerate. Okay. I think I actually have to pass here because playing the Freebooter to an empty hand just to develop a 1/2 isn't that great. But you know, taking damage from both the Guardian Idol and the Banneret potentially is pretty detrimental to my possibility of winning.
Just gonna make this a little bit bigger over here for the viewer. Yep, card just shouldn't be in the deck, but it is, so we lose. Sure. It's not amazing, but it's fine. Have we seen any planeswalkers from our opponent? I don't think so.
Right, so we'll just play out our Bloodstained Mire here. Red fetch. And we'll jam Phyrexian Revoker. I guess we name Guardian Idol because we've seen that card.
Yeah, I couldn't name the Terramorphic Expanse, which is sad. If only this were Pithing Needle. It's really funny how those two cards are like just slightly different. Just like one time not have the removal spell on turn 2. Yeah, just play the Encore Crasher. Okay.
Cloud Concealer can block my Encore Crasher if I don't exert it. But I think we just play the Flame Tongue Kavu. We play on curve and smack for 3.
I like playing the Flame Tongue here because it begs an answer, so my opponent needs to kill this, which then means I get to keep the Encore Crasher around, which is pretty nice. And also, Searing Spear can go face, whereas the Flame Tongue Kabu can't. So I'd like to have the
Big oof. Alright.
Alright, so if we draw a land, we can do everything next turn. Boom. Skill. Just let that happen. Okay. It was technically more mana efficient to do this last turn, but I kind of wanted to see what I drew since I wasn't going to draw something that costs 5 mana most likely. Splashing white, okay.
End step Torrential Gear Hulk. He should have played that and just blocked the Bomat Courier, and he's still not killing it here. It seems weird that he's going to try to race me from 11 life. Alright, so my opponent swings. Okay, take the 5. I'll just char you on my end step. So now we're looking to draw burn. That's not burn. Alright, so I think the play is to just swing, get another card, play Sarkhan in my second main, and then just activate the Bomat Courier end step or something.
Literally has had counterspell every game in the top 17 cards. So that's neat. Hopefully it just doesn't have enough burn damage to kill me. And I can get there on these, on the back of these 4 cards, whatever they are. And there's a good chance that these have burn spells in them, I think.
Alright, so we get one more card. And now we get to sack the Courier and see what we get. Alright, Slagstorm plus Calv Blast is lethal, but if my opponent has burn, I lose. Alright, moment of truth. Wow, that was really close.
Alright, we're back with round 2. This hand's fine. Yeah. We're on the play. We get to play turn 3 Ruin Raider after a turn 2 Firebrand Archer, so I'm pretty okay with this. Our green mid-range tends to be a harder matchup for us. So
Alright, so my opponent upgrades Draga. Do they have something to do with that mana? Looks like it. Alright, Boreal Druid. My opponent floats a mana there, which is probably decent for us. Just going to attack because he won't block. And now we're going to play the Orchestrator and draw a card. Yikes, in the chat they're discussing, the spectator and my opponent are discussing whether Draga Tree Speaker is the best mana dork or not, and it's not, since you can play it, pay 2 to activate it, and then get blown out on the spot. That's huge, because then you waste your turn 2, which is usually your turn where you're getting ahead. It's nowhere near the best mana dork, and I would argue the Bird's Paradise is probably the best one by a decent amount. Alright, so Green Sun Zenith happens. It's gonna be a big boy, and I'm gonna be a sad boy. It's not that bad. I get to kill it with Flame Tongue. Yep, didn't draw anything useful, so just jam the Flame Tongue. Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate part of this deck is that we didn't have enough 1-drops to consistently cast a 1-drop on turn 1, because we transitioned so late. So, yeah, I'll trade here just to draw the card. It'd be great if we could have killed the Tree Speaker at some point, like had we gotten one of our burn spells. If we're able to kill his dorks early, I think we've got a good shot at winning this match. Yep, that's all I need to see. Well, it's not that good actually. Because now we get to attack, it can't kill the Flame Tongue, so we should get in for 4 or it dies. And my opponent's going to spend his next turn like buffing it so he can kill the Flame Tongue Kavu or something, which is fine, but relatively slow. So I'll play out my threats, Thoughtseize my opponent, and probably even draw a card with the Fire Islet here. I'll leave the Bowmite Courier in hand. Yeah, Trumpeting Herd seems impossible to beat, so let's get rid of that. I've also flooded out really hard this game. We've seen 5, 8 lands in the top 15 cards. Now I run 15 lands, which is more than half my deck and lands in 3/8, so 37.5% of my deck, and I've seen more than 50% of my lands. It's pretty rough. We can kill the Flame Tongue. And we draw yet another land. So we just play the Bowmite Courier, and we attack. Okay, so my opponent kills the Courier and the 2/1. They didn't ask me to rewind to the start of combat, so either they don't know how that works with the Courier, or they just don't care. So that's fine, we get to exchange 3 lands for Encrop Crasher. I'll wait for next turn to play the Encrop Crasher. I'd rather than play some big doofus out and then allow me to like get through with some damage. Woof. Alright. Okay. So essentially the play is just, play the Encrop Crasher, force my opponent to not be able to block with the Mold Shambler, and hopefully get in for 7.
Okay, my opponent goes to 7. Can't attack with this next turn. I think that's all the stuff that I knew about their hands. I shouldn't have closed out of the hand window. I just like did it out of habit. But yeah, it's not very good.
Alright, so we drew a burn spell. I think the play is just to kill the Mold Shambler, swing with the Flame Tongue Kavu, and if he wants to trade 2 of his dorks in for the Flame Tongue Kavu, I'm okay with that, because that's less blockers to get in the way of the on-crop crasher. My opponent plays a land out, which I think is wrong here. You're not going to do anything with 10 mana or 8 mana or whatever. So I think that usually you should just leave the land in hand.
Alright. Opponent's got 1 turn to get rid of everything. No. Alright, well, we got the crasher for that. Alright, that was close. Tough match. Mid-range. Bleeding Edge could be good. It's double black, though. It's pretty tough to cast. I think I'm just going to keep. Just going to keep my deck how it is. I don't think I gain anything by putting in other things that are going to dilute my mana base, which will make my deck less consistent. I really wish I would have gotten like a Doomblade in my pool. That would have been nice. Yeah, this one's good. It doesn't have a second land, but
I can cast at least 2 spells, and I'm on the draw. 3 spells. And I drew the second land because pure skill. So we're just going to Galvanic Blast the Tree Speaker in response to activation. That takes time walks my opponent, and then we get to resolve whatever we want next turn.
ooh, that's nifty. That's a pretty big tempo swing right there. Pretty happy about that. Incinerate can kill. I don't know why this one's in.
It's in Spanish, so. But anyway, my opponent plays Mouth to Feed, and I get to Incinerate and then get in for 3, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know why that's in Spanish, but it is. So. Go away.
Alright, so feeling pretty good about this. I've got a Bowmat Courier that's at 2 cards already, and I've got 2 other cards on the board to pressure my opponent with. So yeah, and the Goblin Banneret can start buffing my team, which is excellent. Alright, Walking Ballista might interrupt those plans. Okay, gonna interrupt those plans. Yeah. Okay, so kills both of them at sorcery speed, which is kind of interesting. Generally, people kind of try to keep their Walking Ballista around. My opponent opted to not do this, and to kill my Bowmat Courier instead immediately. He can kill it at the end of my main phase before I attack, so he could have gotten around it, but I would have been able to maybe activate it, and I think he's trying to mitigate my ability to draw cards. So, reasonable play, but it's kind of interesting to note how that works.
Alright, well, that's unfortunate. I mean, Walking Ballistas just happens to be incredible against us. So, um, yeah, it's a very, very good card. And it's very good against aggro because it just pings down the stuff, just guns them down, and you're just like, oh, that sucks.
Okay, so I could char the Mold Shambler, but I think instead I'm just going to pop this Fire Islet to try to draw into more burn spells. Play a land. I think I'll flame to the Firebrand the Mold Shambler here, which isn't excellent, but it does afford me the opportunity to take away the birds anyway and keep my 2-1 around. Alright, drawing another land. Keep flooding a little bit. 15 lands is pretty low, so I think we're on the right amount of land, but, you know.
I think my opponent's on too many lands. Looks like a deck construction error.
Alright, so my opponent does nothing. Frees me up to play Char. It's our turn. Thoughtseize doesn't really do much here. But we gotta put our opponent to 4 and pass the turn.
Alright, so we beat green mid-range.
Alright, this being a 4-man draft, unfortunately we weren't able to get a third game. But let's dig in. So I think in the draft process, there was a moment where I could have taken Monastery Swiftspear and pivoted into mono red, and I didn't. I think that was a mistake in hindsight, but I think that in the draft it was somewhat reasonable. At this point in the draft, I was pretty heavily into this control-looking deck. I had a Yahenni's expertise and some blue cards, but it's notable that in the pack before, this was still pack 1, but in the pack that was passed to me before, there were 2 blue cards, but there were also 2 red cards. There was an Aether Chaser and a Zergo Bell Striker, I think. And those are both indicators that red was open. I ended up taking the Aether Chaser on the wheel, but the Zergo would have been excellent as another 1-drop. So I missed out on 2 1-drops, which would have really smoothed out my curve and made me a little bit more aggressively slanted, which could have helped me get better tempo early on and could have allowed me to cut another land and not splash black, which would have made my deck a little bit more consistent. So I think that those were decisions, they were micro decisions that kind of led to my bias of being more of a control player, wanting to play control that could have made my deck better. So seeing that red was open, I then pivoted from control into this more tempo-oriented strategy. But I think that what ended up happening, given that my round 1 opponent was on blue-red tempo, was that he also saw that blue-red seemed to be kind of open and started moving into this tempo strategy as well. So now I'm fighting over both blue and red cards with someone else. And I think that that person erred on the side of, okay, I think the blue cards are going to maybe lead me to a more successful deck, and chose more blue cards rather than red cards, and was choosing some things that were a little bit different on the curve, right? So he had a mana rock, he had some 6-drops, so our curves were a little bit different. I wanted mine to be a little bit tighter, capping at probably about 5 mana, and he was willing to go up to 6 and have some of those more control-y inclusions in more of a mid-range aggro control deck, aggro control being the name for tempo decks. But what ended up happening from there was that I noticed, okay, so now red is more open as, blue starts to kind of be taken away, and I'm kind of seeing just a lot of 1-drops and 2-drops, well, maybe not 1-drops, but I'm seeing a lot of these burn spells and things be passed, and so I can pick those up and start to craft more of a mono red deck. Unfortunately, we pivoted a little bit too late since we had a double pivot draft, which is pretty challenging to have a really great deck from, and so we had to splash a little bit. There were a lot of options for the splash, but we got 2 back-to-back red-black lands, And we actually passed Smoldering Marsh twice, and we could have picked that up. That could have been a signal that we could be in red-black, and that we maybe missed that as well. But we pivoted and we moved into red with a slight black splash, just due to having slightly better mana fixing with the red-black than the red-blue. And I think that led to a relatively successful draft despite having pivoted twice, which is interesting. And I think part of what allows that complexity of draft are these cards that are hyper flexible, and that leads to interesting drafts. So then in the games, I think really I played overall pretty cleanly. Most of the stuff, not everything was perfect, but I think most of the plays were better than the past couple videos in this draft. I was pretty pleased. One card that really impressed me in this draft was On-Crop Crasher. It's a card that constantly impresses me, but it was just so relevant to be able to take a Wormcoil Engine out of combat and just get the last points of damage in. Another card that really impressed me in this draft was Ruin Raider. It's a card that I've known is good for a while, but it really stood out in this draft as a splash card that I included for its power. It was crucial to winning my game 1 in round 1 because it drew me, I think, 1 to 2, maybe even 3 extra cards. And then my game 1 against my round 2 opponent, it did something similar where it pulled me deeper into my deck. And that's just so amazing whenever you're on a deck that relies on having numerous copies of a spell, like a burn spell, in order to execute its game plan. So I was very happy with that card. And yeah, I think that's the majority of my comments on the draft. I'd love to hear where your picks may be different from mine, what your pack one, pick one would have been. And if you have any insight on the cube based on having viewed this video. So please let me know your comments in the Reddit thread, on my YouTube video, and like and subscribe if this kind of content interests you. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.